right, we'll get started. So everybody should have, if you have numbers, you should get somewhere between 1 and 25. We'll get back to that here in a minute. There may be other ones there, but the ones you want to be concerned about are 1 to 25. Excuse me. So thanks for coming. My name is Paul Urphy. I'm a senior sales engineer out of Atlanta, and we're going to be talking about, this is the synthetics hands-on lab. So if that's not where you want to be, you probably want to check out now. So just a quick overview of the agenda. We're going to do quick introductions. I'll do an overview of synthetics. So if you haven't seen this before, it'll be quick. If you have, it'll be quick. We'll review the setup for the environment. And I realize we probably have more people in here now than we were supposed to. So if you don't have the environment the way that it needs to be, I have some helpers in the room. We'll talk about that in a minute. We can get you up and running, or you can just kind of hang out and watch. It's not terribly difficult. We'll go through a little bit about the script recording basics and then the scripting lab itself, and hopefully have about 20 minutes for Q&A at the end of this. So as I said, my name is Paul Urphy. I'm a senior sales engineer from Atlanta. In the room, we're lucky enough to have Olivier and Renaud. These are two of the developers who are largely responsible for this product. These are the guys that I call when I get stuck, which is probably way too much for their liking. And I'm also helping another compatriot of mine from Atlanta, Jeff Bush, is in the back. I didn't change my slide. Sorry, Jake. Jake Bloom's here, and roping in Jay Davis and Derek Young back there too. So thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate your help. So we'll do this quick overview, but first, just so I have a sense of what's going on in the room, who currently uses AppDynamics? All right, so everybody. That's pretty close. And how many of you have used AppDynamics Synthetics or have been exposed to it? All right, so not a lot. All right, and the last question, who has done synthetic testing in the past? All right, good. So large number. What have you guys used? What have you used in the past? Keynote. What was yours? Gomez. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So full disclosure, I came over from Dynatrace about 2 years ago. I was poached, but I worked with the Gomez product almost exclusively, and as well as Keynote. So I know those products extremely well. And as a group, we have a lot of experience in those products. So that's interesting. So as far as the product goes, just we're going to go through kind of the concept of front-end applications, that high-level dashboard of real users and synthetics, what jobs are, and part of the lab will be setting up jobs and how to do that. The concept of sessions, geography, some of the visualizations, which is if you are already an AppDynamics customer, you may have seen the same methodology before. It carries through. The end-to-end correlation, which is kind of one of the biggest value points in this, seeing a correlation between the synthetic test and the corresponding back-end business transaction, on-demand tests, and then this. And if you're familiar with AppDynamics, it's the same idea around health rules, policies, and alerts. So the front-end application is just, you can have multiple front-end applications. They could be tied directly to an existing back-end. They don't necessarily have to be, but they're created separately, and they're really just containers for these for real user jobs and for synthetics. And the value in these is that if you look at the application delivery chain, it extends what we already do. So in essence, in AppDynamics, we kind of flip that application delivery chain around from traditional monitoring and look at things from the end user in. So what is the user doing with the application? This just extends it further. So starting with the end user in the browser, interacting with the application and tying that together. And then synthetics is obviously using a browser agent to emulate what a real user would be doing, and then tying that together to the back-end business transaction. So once we set up one of these jobs, we'll get dumped in, and it's running, we'll get dumped into to a high-level dashboard that's going to show both our real user traffic and our synthetic traffic. Who in the room is using our EUM solution, so RUM? Okay, so a few of you. So this data will be displayed alongside the existing real user data that you're already getting. I think what's important to note about that is that it's not an either-or proposition. Real user and synthetic are both important tools, and they're both unique tools in your tool bag. So real user monitoring will tell you when your users are having a poor experience, where they're coming from, what they're doing, what they're using, that type of data, and that's important. Synthetic will tell you why, because we're able to get a much greater amount of information, greater depth of information from the browser agent than we are from the JavaScript that's running in a user's browser. So that's why it's important. So the reality is synthetic has been around for a very long time, but it still is a valuable tool to have in your practice because with real users, if I'm starting to see problems, those problems have, they're occurring in real time. Synthetics is trying to get me ahead of that curve. So to add to the proactivity that I'm already getting out of AppDynamics, I'm trying, if I can get ahead of that, or if I don't have traffic, maybe I'm pushing code in the middle of the night and I don't have users that are actively using the system, Synthetics is going to help me monitor those key transactions and know about those problems before users start to hit the system. So jobs are the basic testing unit that we use here. And so in Gomez, they would be tests. In Keynote, they would be slots. Same idea. It's a job. It's what we're setting. It's the test that we're setting up. And these monitor the business transactions. And we'll kind of, in the next slides or two, we'll just kind of give an overview. And you'll be doing this later in the lab, how to set these up and run them. So you can run either as a single URL or as a script. And we'll be doing both in this lab. And so for multi-step business transactions, we'll be using Selenium and Python to create those and drop them in. And when you log into the controller as part of the lab, you'll be putting some Python script that you'll be creating into this and running a job. So this is what you'll be seeing. When you open up a new job, you'll be presented with the option of either running a single URL test or running it as a script. You give it a name, you insert your Python script, select your browser, your location, and away you go. So again, select your browser, so one or more of these, and when we get to this, I'll ask that you select a single browser, and we'll kind of divide up the room amongst locations so that we're not all using the same one. You'll select your threshold, your frequency, your thresholds, and speed. And this presentation and all this information will be available afterwards. So I'll have a shared drive where you can get this as well as some code samples and all the materials that we'll be going through today. And I'll go through when we go through this in the lab. I'll go through what some of these settings mean, and some of the features and timings that you can use and information that you'll get from them. And then once you've uploaded that and you've started to run it, you'll be able to see those jobs running and get the data about them. So we're not obviously going to be running these for very long, maybe one or two test cycles at most. But using this type of stuff, you'll be able to understand the long-term trends and see how these transactions are running, and any of the impacts that you're able to make. So using this kind of ties into the baselines that you might be using, or the benefit of the baselines that you might be using with the core APM features. So as you make improvements to the application, as you make improvements to the pages or page design, you'll start to see those reflected here as well as in whatever the normal is for your application. And then as you're going through this, you'll be able to zero in on specific sessions and the pages within those sessions. And this ultimately helps you get to root cause, because you're very quickly able to zero in on fault domain, especially from a view like this. It's clear this in this particular example, this is a server-side issue as opposed to client-side. So it tells me this is something that's within my control. It's something that's happening within my environment, as opposed to in the network or on in the user's last mile or on their system, which would be outside my control. Excuse me. Of course, geography. Excuse me. Sorry, that was really loud. Geography, browser types, all of this information is available. And if you've used AppDynamics, you might see the same methodology in other places, in analytics and other parts of the platform. You're able to you have your raw data view and then your visualization. So you can use the visualization to narrow down. So say I'm looking at a large amount of data, a big data set. I can say, well, I'm only interested in IE users, and IE users from the United States. And so that I can pare down that data set and then go view a list of sessions only particular to those criteria. Kind of helps you narrow that down. And then I think probably one of the biggest benefits of this is the correlation to business transaction snapshots. So if I'm looking at this and I'm determined that this is an issue that's related, it's a back-end issue, I'll see this icon within the waterfall chart, and I can immediately drill down into the business transaction snapshot. So I'm truly getting end-to-end, and I think that's one of the biggest differentiators in this, is that I'm not using a third-party product. I'm not having to toggle between different applications or do that correlation manually. It's already done automatically for me. And for a quick reality check, you were able to generate a snapshot. So as of right now, it's simply just a single URL, but in the future it will be a script as well. So as you're either developing your scripts or you need a quick result to sanity check, you'll be able to run that. And then just like a lot of other components within the platform, there's the concept of policies and actions and health rules that you can build around these. So as tests fail or as certain conditions are met, you can be notified. So any questions before I move on? All right, I kind of kept that. You guys want to add anything? Okay, good. I didn't maybe put you on the spot, I'm sorry. I've got you in the room. I figured I'd make the best use of that. So who was able to get their prerequisites and has the environment ready? Kind of? All right. So that's going to be interesting. So I kind of knew that was going to happen. So we'll go through this. We'll try to get everybody up to speed because you'll need to have a working Python environment and Selenium, and it's not hard. So that's the good news. So hopefully the network will hold out and we can get this done. But we'll need to do some of this. So and I'm not going to go through this stuff here, but this material, when you get the presentation after the lab, you can kind of go through this. Just another quiz. Who's worked with Selenium or WebDriver in the past? What kind of experience? Okay. So let me say this. So for those of you that have done this in the past, this may be old hat. For everybody else, it may come off as a little daunting at first. It's not hard. Trust me. I'm an old ops guy, old sysadmin, IT director, and if I can do this, I'm not a developer. I only pretend to be one. But if I can do this, you can do this. That being said, there are many different ways to do this. What we're going to do today is we're going to use Selenium Builder and Firefox to record and generate these scripts. You can use Selenium IDE. You can use other tools. You ask these guys; they'll tell you to use a text editor. It's whatever it's whatever your proficiency level is. I think this is probably the easiest way to get started. And it's a good learning tool as well, because what it's going to do is it's going to generate a script for you that then you can then read and learn from and build on. So that's why I've been teaching this method, but it's certainly not the only way to do this. I see a lot of PCs. So if you have a Mac, you already have Python, and you're good to go. Let's see. How many Macs do I have in the room? Okay. So, yeah, if you just go to a terminal window and type Python, you should be good to go. So for anybody, if you want to you'll want to grab the Selenium server. So if you can, grab this URL, go to this URL and grab this jar file. I'll get to PC next. Yeah, this is just Mac at the moment. PC is a little bit more of an in-depth procedure, so a little more work. Yeah, for this, yes. Yeah, if you were on the original list, the environment requirements were sent out. So. You can, what version of Firefox are you using? Oh, really? Is it not letting you download the prior release? Yeah, normally. I think I use it. Okay. All right, so is everyone able to grab the jar file? All right, we'll take that as yes. So for Windows, let me know if you. Oh, sorry. Do you go back? Okay, no problem. Everybody got Ruthie, you all right? All right, let's get to the Windows. So So Windows, you're going to want to install the Python 2.7. So if you go to python.org, and you'll see the archive there. What's that? Yeah, it's 253. Yes, correct. Yep. So once you've got that, go ahead and run that MSI installer. Yes, so actually any of the 2.7. I think it's 2.7.2.
As long as it's not Python 3, it's fine.
Yep. Anyone having any issues getting to finding the file, or the install's pretty straightforward. It's just an MSI, but yeah. But no, everybody's found it, and okay. So if everybody's good, at least you're downloading. I'm going to flip to the next screen because this will be just the path configuration. So this will be on your local machine. We're going to just we want to set up these environment variables, make sure everything works. So I'll leave this up for a second. If you run into any issues, let us know. We'll come out and give you a hand. We just want to make sure this works correctly. At the end, once you've done all this, what you should be able to do is open a terminal window and type in Python and be in the environment. That's the goal here. And the good news is that this will now, after we go through this whole painful process, this will now be part of your environment. You can go home and write scripts. So it's not all for nothing. Uh, 45. To that point as well, does everyone have Chrome? Maybe a couple things we'll be flipping over to Chrome for as well, but. How are we doing? Yes, sir. Yes. So, or this? No. Just the environment variables, or the environment requirements. So. I'm sorry. Would Python Oracle version? Portable? I don't know. Renaud, what do you know the Python portable? I'm not familiar.
I'm not aware of this one. Maybe you can have it. You have it installed on the machine?
Yes. That's it. Mac and Linux are dead simple. So you've got Python, and if you're installed Selenium, you've got the jar on there. You're set to go. Yeah, correct. Yeah. So we tested and ran. Gene, you good? So what you'll want to do is you'll. Oh, yeah. Right, exactly. Go to the folder and then start Selenium. We'll come back to that. Yes, sir. Yeah, exactly.
Because I didn't set any environment variable, but I selected the option while installing.
Yeah, you don't. In some cases, it'll be pathed automatically, so you don't have to worry about that. The test. That's a good point. So once you run that MSI, it may set your environment variables for you. Just open up a terminal window and just type in Python, and you're in, and so that you're good to go. Yes.
This is not or yes? Do I need to set the path still or not?
Nope, you're good. So if you typed in Python, you're all set. Yes, sir.
Is this one? She's responding like this.
Yep, you are in Python. So you're in the.
So when I said, I also noticed that there is a Python command that we should not use. It automatically came.
Yeah, you can, because it's just going to open you. That's going to open you directly into the Python shell. Yeah, that should be fine. Yeah, we're only going to use. Actually, we'll only be in that shell for a little bit when we execute a script to test it. So we won't be coding directly into the environment or anything. So, how's everybody else doing?
You want to install Selenium as well?
Yes.
The same link you had for Linux or Mac.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, actually, I'll show you in the next. It's the next slide after this. So, yes, sir.
So I didn't open it up from a command line. I just opened it up from here. Is that not going to be good enough?
No, you're good. You can do that too.
The command line editor or the GUI?
You can do the command line. All we're gonna do is once we generate a script, we're just gonna drop into Python, execute that script locally to make sure it runs. And when it runs, what it's gonna do is instantiate WebDriver, execute the script, and it's gonna march through what we told it to do, and then it's done. That's all we're using it for. That's ultimately what we'll use it for. All right. Are you okay, Marius? Were you able to?
No, I'm done. Okay, I'm going to go to the next session.
Perfect. All right, how's everybody else doing? We ready to keep moving? All right. Let me get this. Okay, so to answer your question. we're going to use pip to, once you've installed Selenium, we're going to use pip to install, or once you've installed Python, we're going to use pip to install Selenium. So once we're done, this will be that what I was just talking about, where you'll be able to take a script that will be generated by Selenium Builder or Selenium IDE or a script that you write on your own, drop into Python, execute it. It will spawn the browser window, and you'll know that you've got something that you can then use on the controller.
This is 33.
Oh.
It should be like the path they just installed, not planted in typing Python 35.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, hold on, come over. Yeah, Renaud just pointed out that when I was doing this, I was operating in one of my virtual environments, and it's not necessarily going to be Python 35. It's going to be Python 2.7, so change accordingly.
Once we are in the Python shell,
Yeah,
it should be pip,
correct.
and then you point it to the Selenium jar or something.
You're going to run the jar file independently. I'll go back to it in the presentation, but
So I just use pip, and pip is not identified.
yeah, so you don't want to be in the shell. You're going to want to be out just on a regular command line, go into Python, and then execute. There's a pip.exe.
The whole thing. Sure.
Pip.exe.
And then
Install Selenium.
Install Selenium.
Yeah,
Thank you.
correct. Yep. Let me see.
We started the Selenium server
Mm-hmm.
on that. And did it open another window to the Python one? or-
Nope, that's all you need right there. So that's actually, so once you start Selenium running, so with your Java command, we just want to leave that running, and then within Selenium Builder, when we start to execute scripts, it's using this in the background. So this is, you could no-hop this and just leave it running, or just leave it running that way. That's what I do as well. Oh, it's just an example. So yeah, my Selenium script. So when we generate a script, either when you write one or one that gets generated by Selenium Builder, ultimately you'll be able to just drop in Python script name, it'll run. So that's where we want to get to, because that's the easiest way to check. So as we do this, and we create these scripts, one of the last steps you want to do is make sure that it does in fact run and it instantiates WebDriver. And what I mean by that is that when you run that Python script locally, it's going to run, it'll pop a browser window, whichever one you specify. WebDriver will default to Firefox. It'll run that script and exit. And you're like, and that tells you, I've got something that's at least works on my system. I'm ready to upload that or copy that up to the controller and use it as a script. Let me see, Gene.
So it's running?
Yep, it's running. Okay, so this is a good point. That's the second part of this question. Once you run Selenium, in your terminal window, it's not going to stop. It's going. So it's actually running. You could have it, if you wanted to, you could have it run in the background, but in general, I just leave it running. So I have a terminal window, and I know that it's there. Otherwise, I forget it. And yeah, if you need, if you need to, just open another terminal tab. Yeah, you're right. It wouldn't kill the process.
It's running on the back.
Yeah. Good. Okay. All right. Let's. Okay. So if you need some help, shout out. I'm gonna keep moving here, so we can get to this. So this will get us into kind of the script recording basics. So this will be, we want to install Selenium Builder. And so like I said, there's different, you can do this many different ways. You can write it from scratch. You can use Selenium Builder, IDE, whatever. Just for this lab, I want to give you guys a good baseline of something that we know is straightforward, it works. As you become more proficient at this, or you find other ways that work better for you, by all means. There is no gospel, this is the only way. This is just one way. So we're going to, open Firefox and head on over to saucelabs.com/builder. Nope, just go grab this guy right here, and it'll install its latest version for you. And then once you get that installed in your Firefox browser, just go through Tools, Web Developer, and launch Selenium Builder, and you should see a little box pop up just like that. So here in mine, I've actually got a script running in mine. So if you're coming to this from a legacy solution like Gomez or something else, this is the equivalent of the script recorder. When this product was launched back in November, there were decisions made in terms of, let me put it this way, if you were going to create a synthetic monitoring solution in 2016, you wouldn't necessarily go and do what was done 20 years ago, meaning you really didn't want to write something that had a proprietary scripts, script recorder. It's also not feasible in this day and age, given cloud computing, to build hundreds of nodes and maintain them. That's expensive. So the decisions were made to go on a more open source platform. So this originally started with web page test. So the tools developed by Pat Meehan and his team at Google. It's since evolved well beyond that. Lots of parts have been changed and ripped out. But in addition, the decision to use open source tools, Selenium and Python, were also made because one of the things that we heard from customers was that they wanted to leverage skill sets that they already had. So in the enterprise and in the world at large, it tends to be a pretty ubiquitous skill set. In addition, Python is probably one of the easiest programming languages to learn, and there's tons of examples. So that's why those decisions were made. How's everyone doing on this?
In other labs, there was a card where it had all this stuff, so if I need to catch up, there's like a lab, a PDF I can download to just catch up on?
No, I don't have one. My apologies. In Firefox? Control-Alt-B. Oh, because you're in full screen. Or you don't have your menu bar. So.
And one thing that I realized.
Oh yeah, he's. Are you in full screen or?
Yes, that's correct.
I don't see.
Now I got to this point, but
Right. Yeah, I don't see your file menu. There you go.
this is tools.
Yeah, it's a quick way to do it. Control-Alt-B. As a.
It's a different license, right?
What's that?
Is the license different for synthetic monitoring?
Oh yes. So there was a. Yeah, go ahead. No, you don't. You do not have to. So, and so there's a question about licensing, which is probably outside the scope of this, but this is licensed separately, and it's worth noting that synthetics is different in that we use it's time based. So if you've used things like Gomez or Keynote in the past, a measurement was your unit of a measurement is your unit of measurement. It sounds horrible, but that's what they call it, right? So a test would cost you a certain number of measurements, right? And you had a bucket that you brought. Hey guys, can we kind of keep it down just a little? Whisper. So since what we're doing here though is since we're cloud-based, each test takes a certain amount of time. So we license this by blocks of time, so units. Each license is 40,000 units, and each unit is 5 seconds worth of time. And I realize that at first glance that it's like, but based on how we spin this up and how we provision this, that makes the most sense. What actually ends up happening is that as you improve your applications and your apps and your pages run faster, your tests actually cost you less to run versus a fixed unit model where you might get faster, but it still costs you the same amount of money to run the test. So that's how it's licensed. So we would look at how many tests you're running, how many steps are in those tests, and then how much time each test would take, and then recommend a certain number of licenses based on 40,000 5-second units per license. Right. Yeah. So and that's another interesting point too. So if you've been a Gomez user in the past, so you had things like SCOE, screen capture on error, that cost you extra measurements. Those don't cost you extra. Those don't cost you extra in AppDynamics.
Do you know that Selenium Builder doesn't work with more versions of Firefox?
With the reason I went with Firefox 45 was only because there was some hanging on newer versions. So this was an environment that we knew worked for just about every.
Some people have their Firefox that updates itself
Ah.
after so it's kind of annoying. So.
Yes, it will. So yeah, if you have your Firefox set to automatically update.
But the problem is, right, when you're launching it for the first time, it goes with the default settings of automatic updates, so it connects right away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because there's no way you can.
You can try out to see the build Selenium Builder works.
Yes. Right. That's true.
But they did change the plugin architecture a little bit.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going here because we want to make this through this. So as far as for the scripting lab portion of this, we'll keep it pretty basic. We're going to go through recorded basic scripts. So I'll show you how to do this. You guys will do it as well. And we're going to script it against just a Magento e-commerce application that we have running in development. Step 2, you'll actually log into a demo controller and create a job. Again, very simple, very straightforward. And if you're using this product in your own environment, it's something that you'll do quite often. Step 3, we'll actually flip over to Chrome and get you to install the AppDynamics CSS Locator, something that Renaud and Olivier created. It's near and dear to their hearts, but it's actually very useful. I use it every day. And what we'll do is we'll actually change one of the locators. And step 4, we'll do a basic assertion. So these are things that you'll do quite often. So for example, say I'm scripting a login page and I want to make sure that it's working correctly. So I go through the login process, I log in, and maybe it says, hey, welcome user, welcome Paul. I want to make sure that that actual text array appears on the page, so I'm going to assert for that. If I don't see that, fail the test. If I do, pass the test. And then step 5, we have the time. We'll just do a longer script, which will actually go through. It'll put something in a shopping cart, do an assertion, go through the checkout process, assert that we have a certain amount of a certain dollar amount on the page. So again, we're exercising the application. We're making sure that it works. We're also making sure that it works correctly. So we're checking to make sure that text is on the page. We're looking at that a particular value that's telling us that the math behind all this and the shopping cart itself is working correctly. So okay, so step 1. So Selenium Builder should still be open. You know, Firefox open. What we're going to want to do is record a script against this page. So synthetic-test.engg.appdynamics.com. And we're going to search for the word T-E-E, in the search box. And then once that's done, and I'll see if you can figure this out by looking at the Selenium Builder. I'll be right behind you and walk through this for you on the screen. See if it runs locally. Then we'll save that locally, and I'll walk through how to do that. Execute the Python script locally, which is where the terminal window with Python, the Python environment that you just installed, comes into play. And then we'll create a new job on the controller and verify that it's running. If these are the basic skills. This is what, if you're using this product and environment, this is what you will do every day. If you can do this, you're set. Everything else is maybe just different variations on a theme, something slightly more advanced in terms of a script, but these are the basic actions to getting something up and running. Very straightforward. So, let's do this. So, I don't want to be one of those mean drill instructors and make you suffer through this. That's what they always do to me. They're like, here, we broke it, figure it out. It's like a certification exam. We're not going to tell you what we did. Here, we just broke this server, we broke this router. Go figure it out. This is what we're doing. So Selenium Server, if you did this, it should already be running. If you're in Mac, you can execute the jar file. Let me know if when you go back to it. Yes, sir.
So the previous slide was to record the script going to the URL and doing a search.
Yes.
So that URL should actually open on the browser.
Yeah, let's do this. Actually, let me. Oops. Can't do that from there. I'll do it from here. So this is typically my workflow when I do this. So you guys can just kind of work along with me. So I've gone to the page. I'm going to use. So Selenium Builder is automatically going to. Let me do this. So go ahead and start recording. it's gone to that page. I'm going to want to go to my search box, type T, click on the, to make this easier, just click on the little icon, don't hit the return. Let's start that over. Yes, well you can, yeah, it does. Actually, I'm going to restart my. So if you're watching, that was the expected result. I just recorded that in Selenium Builder. I typed in T in the search box, hit the magnifying glass, it returned the results, and then I clicked stop recording, and then I ran it in Selenium Builder. And I'll do it here. I'll do that again. So, and this is why, by the way, this is why we have the Selenium server running in the background. Selenium Builder is using it, and so if I go to run, I'm going to run it on the Selenium server. It's using. You'll notice a few things here. One, it's using the local Selenium server here on port 4444. It's the browser string, so that's what WebDriver is going to instantiate. So it's going to instantiate Firefox. I could type in Chrome. I could do other things there, but we'll just use Firefox for now. So when I click run on this, and it happens fast because it's a very small script and it's running locally, boom, opens the page, types it in, done. So it's all green, we're perfect. So what we wanted to see, that's exactly, so are you guys able to do this if your environments are cooperating? Is this working for you this way? Yes, ma'am.
But it's still trying to connect.
Okay.
I don't see the green.
Do you have the Selenium server running in your terminal window?
I think yes.
Okay.
It's Python, right?
No, so you want Selenium server running. So
I've got Selenium Builder running, but I got to figure out server.
How do I do that?
Same thing.
Yeah.
okay, you have something different. Do you have Selenium running?
So do I just do this?
So on Windows, you should have. Let's see what you've got installed. You can.
All programs?
Yeah. We install.
We install Python.
Yep. So do you have Java installed as well?
No.
Okay.
Do I have to have Java?
No. So at your command, let's see. Did you download Selenium?
I think he helped me with that.
Okay. And then, so you should be able to.
Yes, I did that.
Okay.
Selenium, and
Oh,
then
it's
I went into
This is
tools
Selenium
and-
Builder.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know how to
So
stop the job.
And then I did go into this one.
yeah. So we need to get Selenium on your system.
So it's not downloaded yet?
Right. So we need Selenium server. Okay.
So what issue you had with the new version? Because when I run,
Is it working for you?
it launches the browser, but it's not launching the page.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the debug statements.
That was the issue.
Eventually it dies.
It does. It hangs, which is
That's a problem.
that was the problem I was seeing as well. So we
Eventually
Yeah, and so in preparing for this, I didn't have the time to actually debug what it was about the. I think that problem actually solves when we go to Python 3.5, so which will be supported in an upcoming release.
So I need to figure out the way to make sure Firefox doesn't update.
Yeah, and if you Google that, there's
I'm going to Google that.
yeah, there's right, yeah, exactly. So then you have to turn off the option, then go back and downgrade, and then when it downgrades, it won't have that option on anymore. So for me, Firefox, the only thing I use Firefox for is for writing scripts. So, but if you're using it for something else, that may or may not be an issue. But there are ways to get them to coexist, multiple versions on the same. Yes, sir. Yes.
So we are using these to develop a script using AppDynamics Python.
Correct.
And AppDynamics role in this is a schedule. So you're creating a job or a script and scheduling it through AppDynamics.
Yes, and we're also providing the browser agent. So that runs the script, collects the data, and returns it to the controller.
So whatever the use case you wanted to repeat as a job, we're trying to record it using Selenium. Login, search,
Right.
add an item, check out. That's the use case that keeps on running whatever is like 5 minutes.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So are you in terms of what you're talking about your scripts? I said, were you asking about the scripts or?
So when you say record, you're just developing a use case.
Yeah. So think about it in terms of a user journey. What is a user doing with? And it could be akin to a business transaction or a session, if you will. So if I have a session that represents a user journey, a user comes to the site, logs into the site, puts something in a shopping cart, checks out. That could be a typical, if that's your typical user journey, then that would be what you would script, and that synthetic transaction might be represented by 3 or 4 BTs on the back end. So add to cart might be one, login might be one, and you'd see those drill downs from each one of those waterfalls within the session. Make sense? Cool.
I'm not able to see the Selenium builder here, launching it.
Oh, okay.
The developers.
Should I show somewhere?
Let's see.
It's running. I double click the jar.
Did you install it?
Yeah, it did install.
Okay.
Okay, that is. Oh, that's Selenium. So okay, so now Selenium's there. Okay, so that's the Selenium server.
Mm-hmm.
Now what we want to do is come back to this page here. Yeah. Nope. Whatever the page you were just.
Firefox.
Yep. Add to. Yeah, Selenium Builder. Add that to Firefox. And, yeah. Yeah, go ahead and restart. That's just asking you to restart Firefox. Now, you can also do Control-Alt-B, or
Alt.
Control,
This one?
yeah. There you go. I don't be seeing it in yours.
Did you restart your browser?
Yep, it did.
Do you need to add it again?
I don't know why it's not adding it.
Java command line dash jar. You need to add anything in the environment. Thank you.
That's really weird. Why is it doing that?
It should automatically.
To
trying to do a playback.
Is it something like I need to run this Firefox in the admin mode or something?
No, it should be for whatever. Yeah, I don't know what your local security policy is like, but it doesn't seem to want to allow you to add
Selenium is
that
already
plugin.
when I did the Java jar,
Created a
but playback doesn't work.
very fine.
Port 4444.
Because it says like it is verifying it, but it doesn't install it.
Yeah, it's not for whatever reason on your system. It's not installing.
Kill the Selenium.
Do is I can try to launch this as have something called as launch as administrator.
Yeah, Java as well. Yeah. Yeah, started. Now then.
Didn't come with the administrator.
Firefox is installing updates.
Yeah, I don't know what's. Okay.
So it's able to record this command.
Okay.
For some reason, playback doesn't work.
What version of Firefox are you running?
40.
They said they're all having problem with this version of Firefox, so maybe I can just explain. I think they're all going to have to be upgrades.
Okay.
Because what happens is starting from Firefox 47, 48, they need to have Selenium version 3
Right.
of the Gecko drivers. They are all getting trapped into the fact that their Firefox is upgrading itself,
Okay.
and then the whole setup is not working.
Okay.
So maybe I should just explain this.
Yeah, if you want to grab the mic.
Does that work?
Yeah, just turn it on. It is right.
Okay. Hey, just one little precision about the version of Firefox. So many of you guys have the new version that keeps getting installed. The problem is the newer versions of Firefox, starting with 47, I think, something like that. 47, yeah. They're not compatible with Selenium 2. You need Selenium 3 plus something that's called the Gecko driver. And it's brand new. It's actually still in beta. This is why we wanted to try with Firefox 45. But Firefox won't let us. So if your Firefox is stubborn and really wants to upgrade itself, you can just download Selenium 3 instead of Selenium 2, and then also install the Gecko driver, which you should be able to find. I don't have the URL, but you should be able to find easily Gecko driver, right? And we can help you guys with this.
Gene, were you able to get that running?
I mean, yeah, but I click run and it runs it with Selenium server. It closes the browser window after. Should it do that?
Yes, automatically. It should close it automatically. Yeah, let me just to point this out. So the three things that you need to have running, you've got to have Selenium server running in the background. You're gonna want Selenium builder running, and you want to and Python obviously path in your system, so that when you are in Selenium builder and you choose that run statement, and it's looking at localhost port 4444. It's going to use that Selenium builder that's running in the background, and then you'll be able to execute scripts. So I've talked to a number of people that got to have the Selenium builder Selenium server running. All right. So I realize everybody's still working on this, but let's kind of just let me walk through the rest of this. So another thing that I always do when I'm writing these scripts is I'm saving a local copy. So in Selenium Builder, when you hit save, it's going to save it as a JSON file. That just means that you can open that JSON up again to work on this script. And if you look at this interface, I can do things like I want to add a new step above or a new step below, or I want to change something. So opening this up as a JSON file just puts me right back into this, as opposed to export, which is going to let me export into one of these choices. And so we'll choose, for this you would choose Python. It's going to save it out as a Python file. So it would be whatever your script is, name.py. Once I do that, I apologize, this is really tiny. I can come in and just say Python. Oops. No, I don't have one for that. Let's see. And then I can execute a script that I have as a Python file. And that's kind of always my final check. I want to make sure that this is in fact running locally and that I've got a good Python script. So it'll immediately just exit out. But standard out will if there's an error, standard out will tell me what ultimately happened in my window there. So that was saving it locally. Again, the JSON file, you can version them, you can do all kinds of things with them, but I typically just save them with a name or a version. That way I know I can come back to them, work with them again. Somebody was asking me about updating these things. You can, so if you've got an existing, say, a QA practice that's generating Python scripts, you can drop these into repo and link in via an API as well. So there is an API into the controller that you can use. If it's something that you're interested in, ask us. It's not necessarily published, but it is a good way to facilitate automation. Otherwise, and we'll move on to the next piece, when we create the job, we'll show you. It's basically just take the output of that Python script, cut and paste it, drop it into the job, and we'll parse the script from there. So we looked at exporting that as a Python file, and then we executed it locally. So if you've overcome environment issues and you're able to get to this point, your last step will be executing that Python script, popping, instantiating WebDriver, marching through the script, and you're done. Is there?
Yeah, so if you're running it through the run in Selenium,
Yep.
and it works, but then when you try to run the Python script, it fails.
Okay. Sorry, Gene, for what?
Todd, sorry, I was answering.
Oh, okay.
I'm getting the same thing though. Like I run it, I see it pop up and close, and then I'm getting some none or none type. None type object has no attribute path.
Okay, sorry, everything.
So if I run this, when it pops open, and then I did that.
Okay, none type object has no attribute path. So now if you run that, If you run that from within Selenium Builder, does it execute? That's a good point. I only tend to run it as a Python file locally, just as an extra step. But chances are that if it runs in Selenium Builder and you're able to execute it without a problem, that's going to run in the controller. I tend to be an old paranoid sysadmin, so I want to make sure that it runs off the command line. You don't really have to take that extra step. There's no benefit other than checking off a box and making sure that it's absolutely works perfectly. Okay, so this next step, we're going to actually go to controller. And so this is where we'll actually put this in. So that's the address of the controller that we're going to use. You got a number when you came in, 1 to 25. There's obviously more than 25 in the room. So when you log into the controller, that's this guy here. So it's indexdemo2.sas.appdynamics.com. The account name is indexdemo2. And log in here. User is going to be user, pick a number, and then AppSphere 2016 exclamation point as the password. So, yes, sir.
Ooh, that was close.
The account, again, is going to be indexdemo2. So just use the first part of the URL, indexdemo2, for the account. Got to go. All right. Thanks. Are you, is everybody able to log into the controller? Index demo 2. Yep, just the first part of that octet. Yes. Yep. I just want to make sure everybody's able to log in. So, all right, so once you're actually into the controller, all of this is underneath the user experience tab. And choose whichever username I created individual applications, so these are individual browser apps. The permissions are set for each one of these, so if you chose, if you're one, choose one, et cetera, I think. I'm gonna use this one for example purposes, but you'll have the ability. And if some of you have to double up, just pick a random number and log in with that, and you should be fine. But just remember what you picked. So once I'm in there, I'm gonna look on the left-hand menu under Synthetic, and I'm gonna select Jobs. Yours will probably be empty because there's been nobody in them, but any of your running jobs will appear here. So, for example, I already had one set up for Magento Search, but you're going to come into Add, and the first thing you want to do, since we're not doing a specific URL, we're going to run a script. It's going to automatically give you example here, but you'll want to take the output so that the Python script that we output to a Python file, you want to open that in a text editor or and copy and paste that directly into this. You don't have to worry about taking anything out, removing any parts, just the whole thing, just put it in there. We'll parse that for you. I just want to point out too, so yeah, obviously there are many different systems, there's many different operating system versions and environments for this. The goal, once you get back into your organization and you're working, you want to just accomplish 3 things, and I'll amend the presentation to be clear about this, because we can't take into consideration every possible combination of operating system and patches and software. It's just not possible. The 3 things that you need. You need Selenium, you need Python 2.7. You need a Selenium server running locally, and then Firefox and a browser, and so with Selenium Builder. So once you have those 3 things running successfully on your machine, in your environment, then you're able to do everything that you'll see here in the lab, or in script in general. So let's do this. So if I exported this correctly, let me just do. So once I can just literally grab this from my text editor. and then just paste that into my script window. As I said, the whole thing, I don't have to worry about removing any parts of it. We'll parse out the things that aren't needed by this. I'm going to go ahead and select a browser, so whichever one you want. For locations, let's break this up so we get so we're not pounding everything at once. First couple rows, take Dallas. You guys take Dallas, centered. Next 2 rows, you guys take Ashburn, Virginia, and the last 2 rows, pick something that isn't one of those 2. And I'll grab Sao Paulo. And it doesn't really matter in this particular case. We're going to test all locations at once because there's only one. But if you had multiples, you can either test all locations or you can round robin them. It's entirely up to you. Select your schedule. For this demo, just select 15 minutes. We're only going to let it test once, maybe twice. So have it run every 15 minutes. You can expand more options. This is where you can get into some scheduling, running tests between certain hours. Where this is important is down here, and we'll get here in a sec, is the amount of usage. So we talked a little bit earlier about how this is time-based. So I'm going to set a timeout. The timeout, so for the one that we just did, one of the tests that you just created should be extremely short. I think 30 seconds is way more than enough time. The reason that's there is that if you were to create a script that just hung and ran and ran and ran and ran and ran, it would just chew up your measurements, and we don't want that. So we want the script to time out after a certain amount of time. So say a minute or a minute and a half for a really, really long script. I mean, that's more than enough time. We should never have that issue in real life. So once I've made all of these choices, I'm going to see down here the number of blocks this is going to use, and that's equated into the percentage of the license time that I have. So for example, on this controller, I'm going to use up roughly 17,000 blocks, which is about 1% over the course of a month. For this particular test, we won't make a dent in that, but this is the worst, right? This would be the worst case scenario. If you left at the current settings, if you just let this run, this is what would happen. This is how much you would use up. And then you can configure your thresholds as well. So, excuse me. You can add things that will make this test fail. So I could do something like end user response time greater than a certain number, or a visually complete time, which is an interesting measurement, and it's unique. So typically in the past we had to do things like show me, I'm going to use DOM ready or onload and some of these other more common events to get a sense of what the user saw or when the page was ready for them to interact with. Visually complete actually measures the amount of time to the point at which the page above the fold is presented to the user and is ready and interactive. It's extremely valuable because it's a much more accurate measurement. So it reflects reality, right? So if we're sitting on the couch with a laptop or a tablet and I bring up a Home Depot, it's going to paint and I'm going to be interacting with it within probably, hopefully, less than a couple of seconds. The reality is that it's still in the background loading, it's doing other things, it's loading the rest of the page, it's loading other objects. So you could key off of that as well. The other options that you have are to automatically retest after warning or critical events. This is kind of a free test to you. We acknowledge the fact that on the internet bad things happen, things that are largely outside of your control. So if a test fails, and you select this, that node is automatically going to retest. And if it fails, then it'll report as a test failure versus just a single failure that reports against the test. As soon as you configure this and hit save, provided you've done everything, and don't forget to give it a name, it'll start the measurement. going to turn this one. I'm going to enable this one. So it'll start that clock. It'll fire off a measurement as soon as it can. So, and it'll start reporting in. So you can generally watch for that. Give it a few minutes, and you'll see a job appear there. And then when it does, you double click on it. It's probably not one. There's not one ready yet. You can actually refresh this too and wait for one of the results to pop up. This is where you'll see your sessions pop up. So, given that these are many of these are multi-step transactions, there will actually be made up of sessions. So, a string of individual pages that you can then dive into and analyze the performance of. Event manager? Mm-hmm. Yes.
So in privacy, we don't have a synthetic solution available at present from the AppDynamics.
Are you on-premise?
In privacy.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking that the event manager provides a lot of REST API, and we have a Selenium environment is with us. We are now doing monitoring and synthetic monitoring using the Selenium tools. I was just thinking that whether we should use the same script and then use the Python to execute and take out the data and feed back to the.
That's interesting. Yeah, so typically, so that's a great point. So as of today, right now, synthetics only works with a SaaS, with SaaS. So you can't have an on-prem controller and use synthetics. So that's I won't throw the developers under the bus. That's probably one of the most requested things is the on-prem agent. But you could use an on-prem controller with SaaS-based EUM and synthetics, and that would work. But you can't do on-prem controller with on-prem EUM. It won't work because of the event service. So one of the top requested features is the on-premise agent. Yes, sir.
So the question is, since you're right now coming from the cloud, right, you guys have a licensed policy for me to open it up for getting my internal applications and
Yeah, currently there are three nodes that have a static IP that you can use. Yep. Yes, sir.
I think I might have missed the question, but so is there a way to do internal traffic monitoring?
Yeah, so that was the question here. And so currently there's, you could allow traffic in through the firewall. That's currently the way that using this product, that's how we do it today. That being said, what I was saying was that's probably the most requested feature is the on-premise agent. So that's currently in development. If it has to all positively be behind the firewall, we have to wait for that. Yes, but you could, if not, you could use service availability monitoring, which is part of the server infrastructure monitoring, to check against services. Everybody good? Time check here. About 20 minutes left. Yes, sir. Yes. They are. That's correct.
are you guys right now doing get methods? Are you guys doing post?
You can. Yeah, you can. And that's another use case for service availability monitoring. You can get a little bit more advanced with that. Well, we're not going to go through that here, but yes. Yeah, as part of the script, absolutely. So absolutely. So you can script that. Absolutely. Yes.
You can, but it's a tricky implementation. You can select different ones within the UI. I've done it before, but it's not
It does, and I know Renault's going to say that it does. I typically,
In theory, it doesn't matter, but the promise that you can write one script that will work everywhere, usually it's not true. You have to fine-tune what is generated to work, usually with Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer is like the shady product. So sometimes you have to fine-tune the timing so that Internet Explorer is able to load the page, or maybe the page is slightly different because the server side serves a different page for a different browser. So in theory, with records on Firefox and page everywhere, usually works. The script is not too long. In practice, you have to fine-tune to make sure that you won't get a dated script that shouldn't be alerting you too often.
even in our premise, because since you don't have the synthetic monitoring, so we have a Selenium, our embedded in our solution. So what we did was, because most of our applications are IE certified in the bank side, so we don't. But we were able to do that because we set up a Selenium on Windows platform. We don't have it local, so all the scripting recording should be done in the server on Windows platform. Then we are able to run to an IE.
Yeah, it will work, but depending on the recorder you use, you might generate an XPath that's not recognized by Internet Explorer, for instance, or something like that.
That's true. Basic thing I can actually you can do like log in, hit the page before any user comes in saying that the server is down.
Exactly. That is
Many
what.
of those things can be.
And usually what I do is when I generate a script, I will clean it up, maybe change the XPath, the CSS selectors that are maybe more solid, because I have a better knowledge of the application, and some of the XPaths that the recorder will generate are really long. As soon as a selector becomes long, you know it will break. You want it to be as short as possible and as solid as possible.
Awesome. Thanks, Renault. All right. So we can see I've got a couple of results in here already. So in clicking on these, I'm going to get to the session from the script that I just created. And I can see that there's actually two pages in here. One is rather long running, but I'll have my synthetic results here. You can see this was from Dallas. I can see the resources that were used, so any third parties that were called, how the number of scripts, the images, the tags. And I do, in fact, have a screenshot associated with this. So this was out at page completion. I'm able to see the screenshot. Within the waterfall itself, I can look for, let's grab one of these guys. Any of these long-running components. My HTTP status, the payload size, the download duration, etc. That's there. Then I can download. So in this particular transaction, this was the page that was required the most time. And so very quickly, again, I can see that this one, server side, extremely fast. Client side, not so much. So first byte was kind of long on this, and DOM ready took quite a bit of time.
Did you say that you can do voice testing with synthetic?
Yeah, so just to point that out, Renault was just asking whether, so somebody had asked about REST testing. That is not something that you can do with synthetic. You need to, again, that was to use the service availability monitoring. So if you created a page you would create a page that would call that REST, and then you could do assertions against the results on that page. That would be the workaround. What's that?
Like a status page.
Exactly. Yep. I've done that with several customers looking to do that, or that's currently the way to do that. So again, so we talked earlier about RUM versus synthetic. You know, this is the difference. So I've got a greater number of metrics, a greater depth of view from the agent as opposed to the JavaScript that's running in a real user. So this is telling me, you know, the whys behind this. And let me do this. So was everybody able to create a job? If you created a job, were you able to get results? Yeah. Okay. So if you were able to, if you got to a point where you were able to create the job and it's running, if you would just disable it. So disabling a job is pretty straightforward as well. I come back into jobs. I just right-click on it and I click disable. You don't have to delete it. You just disable it, and it pops that little red X. And step 3, and I think we're probably we're gonna run out of time. So when I send this, I'll send this out to everybody that signed up for this, and I'll help you work through the rest of these if you want to. You'll have my contact information. Probably one of the most daunting parts of scripting, and this goes to anything, any tool that you use, is finding the right selector. That element on the page that WebDriver or the agent can then locate that and find out where it's at, figure out where it's at and where to interact with. And so I think that it's the experimentation part of scripting anything, is finding the right selector to use. And so to that extent, what we did was, if you've got Chrome open, you can go look at you can basically go to, here, I'll show you. Open Chrome. And go to oops. And go to plugins. Oh, yes, I did. No, that's not what I wanted. But you can go. You can add this plugin, so it's going to look something like this. It's the CSS selector, and anything on the page is going to allow me to. It's going to automatically copy the CSS selector, so that when I go back, if we go back into Selenium Builder, and say I'm looking for. Oops. Oh, canceled there. Okay. Come on. There we go. Anything that I'm interacting with in CSS in Selenium Builder is going to have an ID, and when I find an element on the page, I could do it by, say, ID, or by CSS selector, or by link text, or by XPath. Depending on the browser, depending on the version, depending on the website, one or more of these things may work better than others, and this is where that experimentation comes into place. So you may record something and be like, hey, that worked great, and go and play it back, and it says, sorry, I can't find that thing that you told me to find, that field that you wanted me to type a name into, or the button that you wanted me to click. So that's where having something like a CSS selector comes into play, because you just go over and say, find me a selector, I want this button, and it'll copy, and CSS tends to work the best, and as Renaud was saying, the shorter the better, but that's not really under your control at all. But I could say, all right, I want to use, for this one, I picked something at random, but I'm going to paste this in there. Now that's the That's the CSS selector that I'm going to use. And when it's a lot of times it's trial and error. So as I do this, I'm going to try this selector or that selector, and then run it again, see if it runs. Yes, sir. Question.
So how does it work in case of single page applications? You have multiple tabs.
Okay. Oh, so a single page application? Yeah, so instead of steps, it's going to be, and this is actually probably a topic that we won't have time to get into today, but that's going to introduce the concept of weights. So if I'm, Renaud, if you want to add it, the question was around single page applications.
Yeah, because what happens in our application, we're using smart class. And then it has like 3 levels of sections to it.
Yep.
You know, the header, the lines, and branch running. So it can go to different levels. How does it work?
This will be represented as, I mean, in the UI, or how do you script that?
No, it's a UI basically. It's a smart point UI, and it's a single page application.
I understand that.
Multiple tabs.
Okay, so for the scripting part of it, you will script it as you would do with non-single page app. You just record and click the different stuff, and you will have to take care of the weight. So if, for instance, you click on a tab, you will have to proactively wait for the tab to be displayed, as opposed to when you do a get on Selenium. Selenium will wait for you until the page reach the load event. So usually, if you have like an e-commerce, this means that the page was rendered. So you just have to record your scenario as usual and add a few waits here and there to make sure that the page gets loaded before you do the next action, so that you don't try to click on a page where the button is not yet displayed. On the UI, a single page app will not be split in different pages for the moment. So it will be just one page view and not 3-page view, logical pages. This will come later on in the product, but for the moment, that's the only limitation. You can do, I mean, the most important aspect is you can do the business validation. You can do the assertion. It just the resources will be aggregated on the only one page and not on the 3 virtual pages as your application.
And then what happens in case of there are high traffic sites? So you that sometimes page loading takes time, right? So how do you determine the wait time?
The weight should not be a weight with a fixed amount. It should be something based on something appearing on the page. So you would say wait until that button appears on the page. You have construct like that with Selenium. So you just say, I want to click on this button, wait for this button to be visible, or wait for this panel to appear. And it will just explicitly wait the amount of time you need. Because if you run your script on your local machine, it's not going to be the same as running your script in China. You will have latencies that are completely different. So you cannot just say wait 2 seconds and hope for the best. This is Rust. You get quite a lot of flaky tests where you get alerted when it's just like the network was sudden.
Yeah, so again, so in Selenium Builder, it would just be a matter of, I know what I want to, I know where that button's going to be, but as Renaud said, you have to wait. So it's going to be, I'm going to explicitly wait for a particular element to show up. So I could insert a step if I'm doing it through the GUI, or I could just modify the script by hand, but I'm waiting. So those waits were something that we were going to cover in here, but obviously even.
But that wait time doesn't get recorded, because then if I can do that, page loading itself taken.
Right, that's correct.
Weights are not recorded.
Yeah.
This is the place.
Oh, I think you said weights are not recorded, right.
It might record like a fixed amount of time. I'm not sure. I think there's.
Yeah, if you did an implicit wait, you would say wait 20 seconds, but right. But if you were just say just wait for this to appear, it's going to be whatever time it takes for that item to appear, which is more accurate.
So what you should do is usually you record your script. This gives you the basis, like the structure of the script. But if you want it to be rock solid,
Okay. Thank you, Rena. So yeah, I'll keep going really quick because I've got about 3 minutes left in this. So that's some of the follow-on content. So some of the things that we'll be publishing later, obviously more in-depth labs in terms of scripting, I didn't see I assume the camera would be there, but. Okay, so yes, there you go. It is being recorded. So the last things that we were going to go through were really simple assertions. So I'll show you one in this particular script here. I guess we can see this. So for example, in this one, this was the final of this, and I'll make all these files available to you all after this, so you can work through them. But so for example, in this one, I added an assertion. So I recorded the script. It ended up working perfectly, and I said, well, you know what? I want to make sure that when this runs on the controller, that I see what I'm supposed to see. So in this case, in Selenium Builder, I'm doing something like, I'm adding a new step above or below. In this case, it would be a below where something appears. And I'm adding an assertion. So I added this assertion, an assertion text, and in this case, I used a locator. And so for this, I used that CSS locator. I said, this is the coordinate on the screen where this text should be displayed, and it should be thank you for your order. Earlier in this script, you'll see this is the last one within the lab. I did an assertion for a dollar amount. So I knew that by putting a particular T-shirt and shipping in my cart, that it should have a certain dollar amount based on the information that I input. So I just did an assertion on that dollar amount. And so at any point when you do those assertions, if they fail, the test fails, so that you know that something's wrong. And depending on what that assertion might be, it could be that the CMS is not working properly, it's making a proper database call, or there's a problem with the way something's being calculated, or the price of a particular item, or anything like that. That's assertions. And then beyond that, though, and I don't want anybody to think that. I realize this is daunting, especially if you haven't done this before. But once you get your environment set up, and I think that's probably the largest issue that we encountered today. Next time I do this, I think my compatriot Jeff Bush and I were talking about this the other day. We'll likely put things put environments on smart drives, thumb drives, and everybody can spin up off of those. So I know that I've got the same environment. So I probably have as many environments in here as I have people. So that's fine, that's natural. But once you get your environment running, like I said, and really all it is a Selenium server, Python, and then a browser with a browser. And that's it. And so once you get that running locally, you can run through these labs. I'll make sure that everybody who signed up for this gets my contact information. You can route questions to me, and then you'll get the lab. Once you get that done, you can write these scripts all day and record these scripts all day long. It's not hard. The trick is getting the environment running. And unfortunately, all these tools, the plus side is that it's open source. So it's widely supported. As far as your organizations go, there is a ton of training. It's a pretty common skill set. The downside is it's open source. It runs on many different environments, and it's outside of my control. So any other questions? What's that? Oh, sure. I'll modify my. So it's PAULURFI @appdynamics.com. Gesundheit. So if you're running into problems with getting your environment running, or if you have questions about synthetics or EUM in general, just float them my way. All right. Any other questions? So we're about 2 minutes over. Yes. So all of these presentations will be made available after AppSphere, but I'll be sending out this along with a link to a shared drive with all the files, so that at each step of the way you can see my output and you can actually load in. So there'll be a JSON and a Python file. So you can load it and say, yeah, either that looks exactly like what I did or nothing like what I did. I better call Paul. All right. Thank you all very much. Thanks for dealing through the environment issues. I really appreciate you guys coming. I hope you had a good AppSphere.